Hi, this is Sean Poole from letterstoyou.net. Today we are very excited to be chatting a bit with the great filmmakers Frank Marshall and Thom Zimny, who have co-directed the forthcoming documentary film The Beach Boys, which will begin streaming this month on Disney Plus, beginning on Friday, May 24th, the start of Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial beginning of summer. What an appropriate time, of course, to premiere a new Beach Boys film. Thom, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, great to be here. Good to see you again.
Frank, thanks for being
Hi,
with us
Sean.
today.
Sure.
So this film is not surprisingly essential viewing for not just fans of the Beach Boys, but anyone who wants to learn more about one of the most significant and important groups in American music. So I thought we'd just start with how each of you became fans of the Beach Boys music. What were the significant songs, albums, moments, and/or encounters that are there for each of you personally?
Well, for me, it actually is the opposite of what Frank's experience was. I don't, Frank can explain that. But I grew up on the East Coast, and I grew up with the dream of the Beach Boys. I grew up with the very first album being an 8-track of Endless Summer during that tour when they came out and had an NBC TV special and were on this huge ride of touring and the success of that compilation of greatest hits. So I first stepped into it with those greatest hits, but then shortly after started to do the deep dive of going back and going through each individual album. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, loving the ocean and also surfing, but this Beach Boys music presented a world and a vision of America and the California dream in a new way to me that was contagious. I wanted to experience what they were talking about with the power of the sun and those harmonies. So I stepped into it from the beauty of the gray East Coast Jersey Shore and believing in the illusions of summer sun and all the things that they were talking about, the details of the hot rods, the girls, the car, and the hope. For me, this was a great opportunity to step into this music, step into their history, and I really admire this band and really feel honored to collaborate with Frank, who I met on a film that I directed called Johnny Cash, The
Great
Gift.
film.
Thank you. And so it was this amazing opportunity to carry on in storytelling, but also to dive deep into this catalog and really present the band as a family and show all the contributions that the band brings.
Mhm. Frank, you became a fan of the Beach Boys back in the original days.
Yeah,
uh,
back in the
you,
old days.
yeah, I mean, you grew up in California. You were part of that California culture, and you were actually in a surf music band in the prehistory of the Beach Boys, back when all surf music was instrumental. So, from that perspective, I would love to hear you share with our listeners a bit about um, why you see the Beach Boys as so important and influential.
Yeah, I was curious, Sean, why their band worked and mine didn't, you know? The world's probably better off that mine didn't, but it was fascinating to me. I'm fascinated by what makes these bands tick and how one works and one doesn't. And I think in the case of the Beach Boys, it was sort of perfect timing. And they also grew up in a musical family. Their parents loved music and played music. But this collaboration, this family unit that they had, including cousin Mike and then the neighbor, I mean, that just doesn't happen. And they all just loved to sing, and you think about it,
Right.
what was I doing? Yeah, I wanted to be in a Zerp band, but I was interested in other things as well.
Mhm.
So I was fascinated about what brought them together and how it evolved over time. But it was really the key was their harmonies, I think. And the fact that they listened to the Four Freshmen was crazy for me because my dad arranged an album for the Four Freshmen called The
Oh,
Four
wow.
Freshmen and 5 guitars. My dad was a guitar player, loved the guitar, wrote for the guitar, and he did an album with him. So I thought this is a connection I can't ignore. I want to
Sure.
talk to these guys. Yeah.
Right. And the film tells the Beach Boys story in such a moving, intimate, and revealing way. That had to require gaining an immense amount of trust from each surviving band member, as well as the loved ones of the band, family members who've passed, at a time when, to borrow some of Mike Love's up and downs terminology, key band and family members were experiencing some major downs, in quotes, with each other. So, how did that trust gaining process evolve for you in making the film?
I think with this, I was able to work with the band and also worked with the estate of Beach Boys with Iconic, where they were able to open up the doors of the vault of these images of the music, and within that process gain a sense of trust for me as a filmmaker and Frank, um, where we could tell their story in an honest way, where we could really explore new themes. And I think the beauty of this is that the full collaboration with the families and the estate gave us access and that space for trust to develop. And I think Frank really worked hard on um, the dialogue with the band members, and that comes through in the tonal qualities of how they're speaking about the music, the love of the music, their history.
Right.
It's something that you always hope to have as a filmmaker, which is trust and also access to the material, to the Super 8 films, to the archive. So every film I work on, those are the key things to develop. And with this one, was a unique thing because there was a full team of people who worked on telling that story, and I was just glad to contribute in any way and collaborate in any way. It's a band that I truly love, and it's a band in my DNA.
Well, you brought up the vault, and that is a hallmark of virtually any Thom Zimny, certainly a musical documentary, but pretty much any documentary you work on. So let's get into it. Tell us about some of the never before seen footage in this film. What have you two managed to unearth?
Well, there's a beauty that Frank has been able to talk to certain band members and dig out Super 8 and archive, but also Iconic itself has a full storage of the band's materials. So that was a great resource to go to. So you could pick from thousands upon thousands of stills, outtake sessions of audio, go for the dive, and also just receive material at its highest level, visual quality. So you see the Beach Boys in rare 16 millimeter Super 8 stills. That to me is and also I could speak for Frank on this. It's something we really bonded with on the Johnny Cash film, especially. We had this experience of finding tapes, and that term finding tapes or finding the missing archive is a key thing for us as filmmakers.
You brought up the gift, the journey of Johnny Cash. That was the first time that you and Frank got to work together, correct?
That was the first time, and I was really happy with that experience. He was an amazing supportive producer, but what was different about this was in the space of collaborating with him and making this film, the team that he put together and the people who worked on it really made it an amazing experience. So I've always admired his work as a filmmaker and as a producer and as a director. So having him produce my film was a really great honor. But now at this place to share a collaboration this way, it's really great, and I'm proud to have the association with Frank the filmmaker, but also this amazing American band with such an epic story.
I love working with Thom. I love his movies on his own, and we certainly, because we love music so much, and we talk in musical terms, but we're fascinated about the artist. And certainly, he's done wonderful things with Bruce. And we did the Johnny Cash together. So it was right after that we started talking about what we might do together next. and Thom comes at things in a different viewpoint, and he did a lot of audio interviews. I shot some of the on-camera interviews, and then we put them together. And I think
Okay,
it's really a great way to bring a lot of different viewpoints to the story.
definitely. Probably the most surprising musician to appear and comment in the film is Janelle Monáe, and her contributions and insights are terrific. How did she come to be involved in the project?
Well, we have these researchers who look to see who talks about being influenced by, in this case, the Beach Boys. Uh,
Right.
and there were a couple that were surprising. One was Lindsey Buckingham, which I thought was pretty funny when he said, we're in Northern California. We didn't pay any attention. Those, we were serious musicians. Those surfers down there, it was pretty fun. But he realized the genius of Brian. But Janelle, I saw some things that when she talked about what inspired her, and she just loved their lyrics. When she
Mm,
heard them, and what was that about? And their harmonies. That's the other thing. She realized how unique that was.
right.
If you took one of them away, you wouldn't have the sound that they created. So I love talking to her about that.
Yeah, it turned out great, her segments. She offered a lot of insights. Might fans be able to look forward to an expanded version of this film at some point? By the way, my colleague Greg Drew wants a version that will include that complete a cappella "Don't Worry, Baby," that moment where you just take everything down and hear just their voices. Greg's a professional singing teacher, and he's just like, that is one of the most awesome things ever.
It's to hear their vocals and the breakdown of their vocals is an amazing thing, and I'm glad the doc had that moment to break down the power of their sonic qualities and how it lives in our memories and in our minds, but also the doc was able to give a little bit of focus on exactly what's going on, how the layering of those voices creates a sonic landscape of space for memory, space, time, sun, the whole vision of California. It's amazing that it comes from family, and it's amazing that it comes from this band. And in terms of, there's no plans of anything extended, but I feel like this has been an amazing film to be a part of, and it covered all the details that I hope a new generation can see the importance of this band and the opportunities you can have in diving into the music. So I'm really happy
Definitely.
with this, and I'm not missing any storylines, but it's great to be a small part of it.
Of course, this is for a Springsteen fans website, so I've got to ask you at least one directly Springsteen
Sure,
related question.
go
The
for it.
obvious one here is we know how important and influential the Beach Boys music has been on Bruce over the years. In fact, we'll be doing a sidebar piece about that as part of our coverage. Can you tell us if Bruce has gotten to see the film yet? And if so, what he had to say to you about it?
Bruce hasn't seen the film yet. He's been
Okay.
busy on tour,
Yep.
but the beauty with Bruce is that he's got a lot of cool surprises. So hopefully we'll be able to return soon and talk about some of those surprises.
Awesome. Good to hear. We'll look forward to that. Okay, Frank, I believe you got to work a bit with Bruce in your great film Jazz Fest: A New Orleans Story. Were you involved with the filming of his interview segment for that film?
No, that was Thom,
Oh,
actually.
that was Thom. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're all connected. Hey, I call and say, "Hey, Thom, we had this great footage from Jazz Fest, which I guess that
It's
was
so moving. Yeah.
incredible show." And I said, could you talk to? Here's a couple of questions I'd love to ask him. And Bruce was just so great and so generous that he sat down and gave us those great comments. So. Yeah, I loved working with Bruce.
That's great.
Who
Well,
wouldn't?
again, thank you both so much for your time. The
Sure.
film's great, and we're looking forward to helping to spread the word about it.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Great to talk to you.
Good talking. Take care.